Hey guys, welcome back to Telltale. I'm Emily.
I'm Greg.
And today we are going to be talking through the rest of our Philip K. Dick kind of series that we're doing. And we are doing the short story, The Gun. This is number 3?
Yeah,
allegedly.
2 or 3. This was published the same month as The Skull.
Okay.
So, I don't know
They're
which one hit the
interchangeably
newsstand first.
2 and 3.
Yeah. This one, though,
The
was
twin that was
published-
born 5 minutes sooner.
Yeah. This one was published in Planet Stories, though.
Okay.
So this was a cheap one.
Okay. Nice.
And again, totally public domain. If you want to look this up, you can download it for free from Project Gutenberg.
That's where I got
and
mine.
read this story. No strings attached.
Yep.
Like a lot of early Philip K. Dick stories, although not all.
Yes.
So, the synopsis of the story. I'm gonna make it very basic. You've got a planet. You've got a spaceship. Comes to the planet. The planet has been destroyed by atomic fission, nuclear war.
It's my interpretive dance for nuclear war.
Go for it. So the spaceship is at this planet, trying to figure out what's going on, and they get fired on, and their ship gets damaged, so they crash. Well, they don't exactly crash. They have to make an emergency landing so that they can make repairs.
It's falling with style, really.
So that's the non-spoiler synopsis. It's again a short story though, so
yes,
it's hard to really talk about it without going all the way to the spoiler.
Yeah, and one of the things too is this one didn't have as well developed characters, but that's because the main character is not a character.
Right.
It's a machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of have this almost, I loved it because it was like a HAL situation, except it couldn't talk back.
Yeah.
Where they show up on this planet and they decide they're going to do some exploring to figure out, 1, why they were shot down when there's clearly no life on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, like, it's basically meant to be an archaeological expedition, isn't it? Or was it there was like a distress signal or something they were responding to? I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, there was some reason they were going to this planet very specifically, and I thought it was like a distress signal or something that was done ages ago, and they were expecting it to be, maybe that's what it was. They were expecting it to be like an archaeological thing because of how old the distress signal was.
Yeah.
And so they decide while they're letting the rest of the team work on the ship, because it needs repairs and they're just, hauling ass to try and get out of there. They want to go see, 1, why they were shot down and by what, and what it was protecting.
Mm-hmm.
And so they this team of scientists goes and leaves the ship.
Yeah.
To try and figure out where this gun was that shot them down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting because the characters themselves are actually really cardboard and almost machine-like in and of themselves. They're real shallow characters because the story's real short, but it just seems like the shallowness was more intentional than this is just a short story.
But you got to remember the time that this was being written, and I'm going to do a video all about this coming up very soon. Mm-hmm. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and this, being a short story, he had just enough time to get his idea across. Mm-hmm. He really didn't have any more time to develop character. Mm-hmm. Some authors get around this by coming up with ideas that are central to a character, so that the only way to convey the idea is to talk about the character.
Yeah, is to develop that person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if your idea is something like what you have in this, of a fully automated weapons system guarding a planet from everything and anything that comes in, you have to present it, and he's presenting it in a way that you gradually learn what all is going on, which is kind of typical of Philip Dick, and actually very typical of science fiction, that they present it like the unraveling of a mystery.
Yes, very much so.
And so by the end of the story, you get the whole idea, and you leave with the idea. And after only, 7 pages, how much character can you develop? You can't.
You really can't. But there's also like a very clinical way. Like there's a romance in this. Where one of the characters is looking to choose like a partner. And the whole thing, as they talk about it, sounds like a very mechanical business transaction.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't sound like a romance. It's like, the viability of our relationship is better off between you and I versus this other person who has this better, opportunity of potentially being captain. Now, like, the captain's been killed in this crash or, emergency landing or whatever kind of
Two
thing.
possible explanations. One possible explanation, this is only his second or third published work. So he's only written a handful of short stories and tried to publish them at this time.
Yes.
So it could be he just wasn't very good at character at this time. Or it could tie into, because this third story presents a third theme, which you're going to find again and again in Philip Dick's work.
Yes.
And that is of the instrumentalities that are controlling us.
Yes.
That are not being controlled by human beings, but they're being controlled by computers or aliens or something other than us.
Artificial intelligence.
In this case, that's what it is. It's, you have the only thing that survived on this planet is this instrumentality of computers.
Yes.
A computer system that's meant to be...
And it's become self-sufficient.
A defense mechanism, and it's very possible that it's a Terminator type situation where these computers wiped everybody out.
Yes.
Because that's what they were programmed to do. Instead of just defending the skies, they started blasting everything in sight.
But we don't get an answer to that. But that's why I think it feels intentional. Like the machines are actually the people. And the machine itself is doing its task to the best of its ability.
And that's very possible, because that is a theme of Philip Dick's later works is this idea of what is it to be human, and are we being controlled by our technological instrumentalities?
Humans human enough? Like in this case, that's kind of felt like the question was, when you find out, without spoiling, what the gun is protecting, that feels more human than what the humans are doing to interact with each other. Like, even with the captain dying, it's like nobody's batting an eye. They're just like, okay, realistically, he's dying. So someone else is going to be in command. But there's also this romance that's very, like, clinical and very, like, cut-based. It just really felt so intentional to me. That it seems like he's saying it's almost like the gun is more human than the humans are. And I really appreciated that about this story a lot. But I also like the theme of like having a Hal type character that is flawed in its logic. But still like having that lack of language to communicate why it's doing what it's doing, and the mystery of that is really compelling too, because we don't know why. You're still left there asking the question, why is this gun still operating? Are there more? Why is it protecting what it's protecting? Why is it still shooting at things coming at the planet? Is it part of the reason things were annihilated? Because they bring up the question, the crew that's exploring brings up the question of people who fight against other people, like they're the same species, there's no reason they should be fighting. Like in their mind that makes absolutely zero sense. Like they should all be fighting together against something other, not against themselves and destroying themselves. So they're running on this assumption that the human, like whatever creatures they are, we don't even know if they're human or not. It's never specified. It's never specified what this planet is or what kind of life there once was or anything. So you're left with all these really compelling questions with no solid answer. So it's like you kind of get to the edge of it, and the edge of it, like he always does, where you get to the edge of this thing, and before you tip right over the edge, he cuts it. It's like end scene. It's like watching an anime.
That's actually it's brilliant of Philip Dick, but it's pretty characteristic of science fiction back then.
Yes.
That they would present an idea and let you take it farther. Let your mind take it farther.
Let you pose the questions.
A lot of the authors wanted to do that. They
like
wanted
Inception. Does the top keep spinning or does it fall over?
Yeah. But they set up these situations and they could keep writing it. And today's reader would get frustrated that they don't take it farther and explain everything for them. Back then, readers loved that it was kind of open-ended, and you could, when you finish the story, your mind is just racing down all these different possibilities.
Yes. And I think, too, in order to appreciate science fiction like this, you have to be okay with sitting in ambiguity. And I think a lot of people, we live in a very like instant gratification culture where we want closure all the time. And it's like, if you're a personality that definitely is okay sitting in the uncomfortableness of ambiguity and not having all the answers, you can really enjoy this type of work.
Yeah.
Or you can train yourself to enjoy this type of work by learning to sit in the discomfort of having this ambiguous story.
Well, and it's like science itself. Every scientific discovery raises more questions than it answers.
The more we know, the less we know. And that's just facts of life. Because you can have all the answers and still have it pose more problems and more questions. That's normal. So I think that's another theme that I really like of these stories, is that it kind of pushes you to this ambiguous ending. Yeah. Where it has an end, but you don't get the closure. You're still stuck with all these questions. And I think I like it because it makes me ponder.
Yeah. I like
deeper
that too.
And deeper and deeper. And it becomes more philosophical, which I think is why it becomes such a great work for how short of a story it is.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Yeah.
And feel stuff.
Yep.
So.
And this guy was a master of that. And of course, with all these early Philip Dick stories, I read it in Paycheck and Other Stories. This was published by Citadel Press. It's a trade paperback that I bought in the 1990s, and actually bought this probably used because it's a half-price book.
Yeah.
Label on it.
Fantastic condition for whoever last
Well,
had.
yeah, it was in beautiful shape, so I picked it up.
Yep.
It's sometimes they get new books though. You never really know with theirs.
Yeah.
So that's a great book. It has most of Philip Dick's early work, like the first 3-4 years of his career. Not every story, but most of them from that time period are in that one book.
Yeah.
And it's, so far it's fascinating. We've read 3 of these Philip Dick short stories, and it's fascinating to see these early explorations of his major themes.
Yes.
Already, right out of the gate. I mean, other authors are not this far along toward their primary themes of their fiction.
Sometimes they're going through their awkward teenage phase of authorship where they're like, there's hit or misses, but it seems like he's pretty consistently aware of what he wants to write. And it seems very intentional.
Like a contemporary of Philip Dick, Poul Anderson, he got started in Planet Stories too, but he was writing typical Planet Stories, adventure stories for a long time. And he didn't get into his more sophisticated pieces until like the 1960s and 1970s. Yeah. And even then, he was still writing mainly adventure stories. Where Philip Dick, right out of the gate, even in Planet Stories, is writing these very sophisticated, more literate sort of science fiction stories.
And deeply philosophical. Like it always is based around some kind of philosophical question of what would you do if. So
we'll have to... excuse me. We'll have to see if he keeps going like that, or if he takes a break on any stories and just does something
throws us for a
fun,
curve. I kind of want him to throw us for a curveball, like write a romance, like a real one. I don't know. Throw us for a curveball.
I don't know if you'll see that from him. I've never heard of that in his work.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I think it'd be really funny if, as we dig into this, we find some curveballs like that where he's like, and this is where he wrote blah 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 about these 2 lovers in Verona. I don't know.
So that was September 1952 we're at. And there's one more from 1952 published in November called The Little Movement. That'll be our next video for Philip Dick.
I'm excited.
And after that, I believe, is one called Mr. Spaceman.
Mr. Spaceman?
Mr. Spaceship. Interesting title. Really interesting title.
Interesting.
Yeah, so looking forward to finding. I've never read either of those stories. I'm looking forward to
Yes, me too.
seeing what they're about.
Yes, I'm really enjoying these too because I'm one of those. I have such a busy lifestyle right now. Like, the state of my life is chaos. So being able to still have literature like short stories, we've talked about this in previous videos too, is having short stories are a great way of getting good literature without, one, breaking the bank, and two, having to invest so much time in something that you don't have time to like pleasure read because you're sitting there feeling guilty for like not being able to read chapters and chapters and chapters through a whole novel.
Exactly.
So I feel like short stories like this, I'm already super impressed. So like Philip K. Dick is on my list of definitely more short stories to recommend to people, just because these are great pieces for how they take no time at all. I don't think I've spent over 15 minutes. I'm a fast reader, but over 15-20 minutes on any of these stories.
Yeah, The Skull is the longest one yet.
Yeah. So they're fantastic. They're short. And if you have a busy lifestyle, it's a good way to get good literature.
We will get into some novels, but not for a while. His first novel, looking at my bibliography on our website.
Yes. We're working on those.
I've completed Philip Dick, and the first novel I see on here looks like it's I'm not seeing it. Where is it? Solar Lottery. There it is. In 1955. So we got a good 30 short stories to go through before we get there.
At least. So yeah, this is a great way of getting into literature. If you are not a long-term reader, Philip K. Dick is a great short story compilation to start with.
Well, that's true.
For the busy lifestyle.
Writers. Because most of them started off because the older generations of science fiction writers, their main market was the magazines.
Yes.
And the magazines couldn't publish a novel in every issue.
Yeah.
They usually had to serialize them. So if you sold them a novel, it's going to be spread out 4 issues. In the meantime, if you want to sell more stories, you got to write short stories because that's what they had more room to fit into the magazine. And so a lot of them wrote, anywhere from 20 to 60 short stories before they ever tackled any kind of a novel.
Yeah.
And even once they did start writing novels in the 1950s, when publishers were looking for science fiction novels, they started writing novels, and they still wrote short stories because their friends were editors of the science fiction magazines.
Yeah, and so they
their
said,
friends
hey,
were calling up and
bro,
say, hey, I need a short story. Can you write me something
Throw
quick?
me something together this
and
weekend.
So they would keep writing
Gold,
short
throw it in.
stories.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the 1970s that you see that starting to calm down, but still most of the new authors got their start by writing short stories. Like John Varley wrote a lot of short stories for Galaxy magazine in the 1970s before he tackled any novels.
Yes. But in comparison, if we're taking like Poul Anderson, again, let's use him as a reference. Again, just really fun adventure stories, not something super literary. If you want something that's good quality literature, I feel like things along the line of what Philip K. Dick is doing, which not all the science fiction authors were doing. They were just selling.
Definitely not.
He was making literary pieces of short stories. So if you are that kind of person, he is definitely a good author to check out. If you like adventures, Poul Anderson is great. Great one to check out. Short stories, fun adventures, quirky, crazy circumstances and characters. Like, that's very typical of him. But then you're dealing with someone like this who's got maybe not the greatest character development, but says a lot without saying so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to having like good literature. So I would say, like, yeah, if you're an adventure person, Poul Anderson's great. If you want literature, Philip K. Dick.
Yeah. And well, Dick and maybe a couple other science fiction writers at this time were seen as more literate than the rest of the science fiction writers.
Yes.
But very quickly in the 1950s, you had quite a lot of other authors appearing. that were the same way. They were
Yes.
a lot more they were still writing science fiction and fantasy, but it was better than what had been published before. People like Harlan Ellison,
Yes.
Alfred Bester, Algis Budrys, James Graham Ballard, Brian Aldiss, who I just finished his bibliography on the website, Michael Moorcock. These authors were writing at a level higher than what you found in a typical Planet Stories issue.
So a fantastic list right there, that if you are a person who enjoys sci-fi but does not have the lifestyle to read novels, or like the other issue with science fiction now where it's 37 million different serializations of the same character going over and over and over. I'm like a maybe, I might. I think the longest series I've ever read was 8 books. I don't think I can go for more than that. That's too much time investment for me. My lifestyle is too busy.
Well, it's actually not a new thing. Perry Rodan, I think I've got it behind you here.
Oh, that's Asimov.
Right here.
Yes.
This book.
Enterprise Stardust, #1.
That's #1. That's a later English edition. It was originally published in Germany in the early 1960s.
Sold 50 million copies.
It's still being published.
50 million.
They're
Still
up,
going.
They're up to
This is #1.
They're up to number 4,000 something now. And it's a
like,
serial. You can't just pick up one of them and read it. You have to keep
reading the
them
whole
all.
thing forever. Until you die, and then you don't get to finish it. Oh my gosh. See, like, that's too much to me. That's just like, now you're just beating the dead horse.
Well, the good thing is that in English, only about 120 of them have been published.
Okay. That's still too many.
Yeah, but they're really short.
It's like, that is nice. At least they're really short. But I'm like, maybe 5. I'll give it 5, and then I'm done.
But anyway, that's
Can't
the
do
original one. That's,
yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. There were a lot of Doc Savage books published, and those date back to 1930s.
It's like the One Piece of... There's an anime called One Piece that just keeps going. Naruto was another one that just keeps going. There's hundreds and hundreds of episodes of this, and hundreds of mangas of this stuff.
Well, people like that. I mean,
yeah, the story just keeps going, and they never die.
Spider-Man has been published since the early 60s, and they're still publishing new issues.
Yeah,
Superman
but a lot of those are reboots.
Since the 1930s.
Yeah, those things are reboots, though. This is not the same story that just keeps going that we're running into a lot of. Like, Dune is one of those, too, that like when his kids start taking over after he passed away, like, it just keeps going and going and going. And I'm not saying anything about, I haven't read the rest of it, so I can't speak to how well it's going, but I don't have the lifestyle to invest in that.
Yeah, but the good thing with Dune is you can read. I've only read the first book. I loved it. I don't really have to read the rest. That first book is satisfying in and of itself.
Yes. And I feel like there's something to be said about things like that. But I love that the nice thing with Philip K. Dick, especially, and the other authors you mentioned, is my generation, we're like, I'm working like 4 jobs. You know, when do I have time to pleasure read except when I have, I don't know, if I take a 15-minute bathroom break and pretend I have some kind of metabolic issue, maybe I could get in a short story. But the fact of the matter is, with this kind of literature where it's still really good, it's very literary, it has really cool themes, it asks very human but very deep questions, and it's only 7 pages long.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's fantastic. I couldn't do 4,000 books of anything.
Well,
there's too many other things I want to read either, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, I think I'd get bored of the same characters over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Think, but comic books keep going that way.
I suppose. But I'm one of those who, like, I pick up at the beginning of a reboot and then end it when that reboot is ended. At least even in comic book, like Sandman. I really enjoy the Sandman series.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty short series when you think about it. At least, you know, there might be reboots and happening again now. But for the most part, like, there's not so much to it that it's overwhelming and you get bored of the story. And even then, it's a bad comparison because Sandman isn't about Sandman himself. It's about the characters he's interacting with. It's their story, not his. He's basically like inconsequential. But in most of like Dune, it really is a continuing theme of this first book. And you do need the rest of them, or the previous ones, in order to be able to read through the rest of the series. And that just feels like too much.
Yeah.
I have too many other things I want to try reading. I don't want to spend the rest of my life reading 4,000. But yeah, Philip K. Dick.
Well, it's okay. They're all in German. Unless you read German, you can't possibly read them anyway.
I could read German. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you could learn.
I don't want to.
Okay.
Then I'd feel responsible for having to read 4,000 books. I don't feel like that.
Yeah, but you'd have the freedom that if you wanted to read 4,000 Perry Rhodan books, you could.
That's true. No one could stop me.
Or you could read Goethe.
But I don't know if having that kind of clout is worth the time investment.
No.
What am I really living for then?
Though it is interesting how today everybody wants these 1,200 page dictionaries to read. And like you say, we really don't have the time.
Yeah, we don't have a society busy.
Especially
we are too busy carrying the weight of capitalism to be able to have enjoyment. So, yeah, I don't have time for that kind of stuff. So short stories
give you that.
They really give you
ability
a lot more
to
freedom.
Read a full story, and it is, like you say, it's not a series; it's a self-contained story.
Yes.
In 7 pages that you read it and you get what you get out of it.
Diversifying.
Yeah. And I personally like a story where it doesn't have to have a neat, tidy ending.
No.
But just the one story or the one book, and it's not part of a series. I get the whole thing that the author wants to present, the whole idea, all the characters, whatever that author is trying to tell me in that one book.
Yep. I like having that closure.
And I don't have to keep going out and buying another 1,200 page paperweight.
Yeah. Seriously. And I don't even mind trilogies either, because I feel like I can breeze through a trilogy okay. That kind of stuff. But short stories are definitely more my forte, especially with my life circumstances right now. It's great to have wonderful pieces of literature like this that are accessible. You don't have to break the bank to get them. They take almost no time to read, and you still get a very fulfilling reader's experience.
Yeah.
And that's important.
And just looking at all the great writers that have done short stories: Ernest Hemingway, Harlan Ellison, Philip Dick, Isaac Asimov, Arthur Clarke, H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah.
Who am I missing?
Everyone. There's so many. We could go
Perkins
on.
Gilman.
Yes.
Ray Bradbury. Oh, geez. Ursula Le Guin.
Yeah.
I just know that.
Isn't that cool?
It is.
All it is cross-hatching, and yet it is a shrouded
we
figure.
got cut off somewhere in our discussion. We went on way too long for my camera, and the camera said, "Screw this, I'm shutting down."
We're over you. And I'm getting distracted by pretties. I like illustrations.
In case it didn't get recorded, I bought the September 1964 issue of Amazing Stories, and it has a very early short story by Ursula K. Le Guin.
And the illustrations in here are really cool also.
They are.
I really am enjoying looking through this. But the whole case in point that we're making while we're going through this Philip K. Dick series is that novels don't have to be the only form of high literature. And we live in a day and age now where short stories are easier and more accessible for busy lifestyles. And we can definitely, very assuredly, just from the 3 we've already read, with so many more to come, recommend Philip K. Dick as an author who is a good go-to for short stories. Yeah.
Well, and these 3 Philip Dick stories and a lot of the other short stories we've talked about, you could read on your lunchtime.
Yeah.
Fit them in there.
Or on the potty, like I do.
Yeah.
You're taking a bathroom break, whip out your phone and just sit for a minute and read a page. It's really not hard.
You get the whole thing in that one short time. And it's great for a busy
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
If you just don't have the time to keep reading
Yeah. You don't have to
the
have a ton
big
of downtime.
Stephen King or Brandon Sanderson monster books.
Yeah. And that's the big thing for me is I don't want to have a ton of downtime to have quality downtime.
Yeah.
And I feel like literature like this that are short stories, that's just really spot on
Mhm.
with making you think deeply and feel certain things and like question life, the universe, and everything, and also be entertaining. That is the quality I want in a very short span of time
Mhm.
because my time is extremely precious to me.
Uh-huh.
Life's too short to read crap,
Right.
so read good stuff.
Always.
That's all I have to
But
say about
there's
that.
some good novels too.
Yeah.
Weave World is a pretty long one. I've been working on that little by little.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also reading Jurassic Park. For those of you out there that were bugging me to read that, I am reading it and I will be reviewing it in a couple weeks.
Maybe I'll get around to it. I can't make promises, guys. I'm working 4 jobs.
It goes pretty fast.
That's good.
Yeah.
I can deal with that. There are some things that just drag.
It's over
It's
400
good, but it's-
pages, but it's written in a way where it goes fast.
Yeah, that's good.
Easy
I like
to
that kind
read.
of reading.
Mm-hmm.
Where just you
Mm-hmm.
can't put it down. But I also need to sleep.
Nah, who needs sleep?
Sleep's for the dead. I mean,
Samantha knows that one. She's up
yeah.
all night, all the time.
She's like, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't or wouldn't, Samantha.
I
Couldn't
think she
or
sleeps
wouldn't.
through her job.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had a job where I could do that.
Well, she does. She's on the phone all the time.
Yeah, I know. I know. Me too. I'm on my feet a lot with
Mm-hmm.
everything I do. But all right.
Okay.
Good literature. Thanks, guys,
Yeah,
for joining us.
See you next time. Like us and subscribe to us. Leave comments, please. We want to hear from you.
Leave recommendations for other authors we should try or short stories that you know of. Things like that.
Yeah, I'm starting to clear out my list of recommendations that I
Mhm.
have gotten from people. So
Yeah. And if you guys want to follow along with us on our Philip K. Dick series, we have his full bibliography available on telltale.com.
Mhm.
So you
and
can
if you
go-
look at it, I got a little R checking off the ones that I've covered already, that I've read
Yeah.
already, and so you can see what's next.
Yep. So if you want to read along, it's kind of like a virtual book club, but feel free to
Kind
discuss
of.
with us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.